Welcome to my channel Exploring Mathemedica. Hope you have liked the earlier videos. If you like the channel, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell so that you will receive further videos. Many of my students asked me to prepare a video on homeopathic posology, so here I am with the same. In homeopathic prescription, the first and foremost important thing is selection of the drug. After selection, the work doesn't end here. We need to select the right potency and we should also know when to repeat or when not to repeat the drug. So now let us know what is posology. Posology is nothing but science of dosage, or it is also called as doctrine of dosage. So in the Greek, posos means how much and logos means study. So it is nothing but study of dosage or doctrine of dosage or even science of dosage. So as we all know that homeopathy is based on three essential elements. The first one is the principle of homeopathy. When Hanuman was translating Pulans Metra Medica, he found that a sentence saying that Syncona cures malaria because it is bitter. But bitterness cannot treat malaria. So he took the decoction on his own and he found that he could produce symptoms of malaria. And when the same decoction was given to people suffering with malaria, it removed the disease in them. So he experimented this on himself, his followers, healthy human beings, and also on sick individuals, by which he came to the conclusion that like yours like, that's what he called as law of similars. This law of similars was also earlier founded by Hippocrates, but it was not that much implemented, and with further experimentation he found that the homeopathic remedies can produce more number of symptoms when they are more diluted and they are more made dynamic by the process called as potentization. So we are having next in the series is the remedy. So the remedies of homeopathy has to be applied in accordance with the principle of homeopathy. So now the remedy selection is one aspect. After the remedy selection, the third thing that is very, very important is the dosage. So how to prescribe homeopathic medicine? So what is the potency that has to be given, and what is the when we should do the repetition? So now if we take these three essential elements, that is the principle, the remedy, the dose, each one is equally important. We are having a series of potencies in a decimal scale, centesimal scale, and 50 milliscale scale. And one says that homeopath should be an unprejudiced observer. And it is not only in selection of the medicine, it is also in using the potencies that a homeopath should be unprejudiced. So any potency may be required in any case. It is very important to know how the doctrine of dosage has been developed. A well-selected remedy may fail if the dosage is not proper. So the doctrine of dosage was based upon the discovery of the opposite action of large and small doses of medicine. So now let us see some examples with respect to the large and small doses. Ipecac in large doses causes nausea and vomiting, and the same ipecac in small doses cures the same. Opium in large doses causes deep sleep or narcosis. The same in small doses will cure the same. Similarly, we have primary action producing one group of symptoms and secondary action producing opposite set of symptoms. For example, opium in the primary action produces deep sleep, and in secondary action it produces wakefulness. This applies to drugs given in considerable quantities in what are called as physiological doses. This we have seen even in case of coffee, where coffee drinkers drink coffee to remain awake to do their work, but later it produces the exact opposite action, that they become sleepy. So we should know that homeopathic medicines are never used in physiological doses. So now what is a physiological dose? So physiological dose produces symptoms, and it is a dose of a drug empirically selected of sufficient quantity and strength to produce a definite predetermined effect or group of symptoms. So it is a maximum dose which is consistent with safety. So now let us have an example of physiological dose of atropine or belladonna. It is one which is sufficient to produce dilatation of pupils, dryness of mucous membrane, and flushing of the skin. So after knowing what is a physiological dose, let us know what is a pathogenic dose and what is a therapeutic dose. So pathogenic, or which is we can call it as also toxic because it produces suffering in the organism, which is expressed in the form of symptoms, again, which are the language of the disease, or you can say artificial disease. This we can find in drug proving. So in the therapeutic dose, which is curative dose, or which removes the suffering of the individual without producing any symptoms, that is the therapeutic dose. So in homeopathy, it is not necessary to use physiological dose or pathological dose to treat a disease. So physiological action of a drug is not its therapeutic or curative action. It is exactly opposite of a curative action and is never employed in homeopathic practice for therapeutic purposes. And homeopathic cure is obtained without suffering, without the production of any drug symptoms, and it is possible by minimum dose. And therapeutic dose should be capable of producing slight temporary aggravation of already existing symptoms, never of producing new symptoms. It should not be surprising if anybody asks why in homeopathy we are having infinitesimal doses, or what we call as dynamic doses, which are resultant of the process called as potentization or trituration. So the organism produces resistance for every stimuli, and this resistance by a dissimilar drug or to produce physiological effect, the dose must be very large enough to overcome first the body resistance and secondly to produce its characteristic symptoms. So a homeopathic drug which is similar offers little or no resistance because its resistance is overcome by similarly acting disease producing agent. The affected organs or tissues are open to attacks from without. The susceptibility to the similar drug is therefore greatly increased. So in homeopathy we are having very small doses. It is so small that it does not produce a severe aggravation of the already existing symptoms. So why small doses? Whether this small dose will be able to give relief to the patient, it is because when an individual becomes sick, he becomes sensitive to even to the small doses. So this small dose can excite reaction in the individual and bring about recovery. So the disease renders the affected parts abnormally sensitive, because of which the small doses can act. And homeopathic medicines are given singly so that the action is complete and it is not unmodified by other drugs. Medicines act curatively in infinitesimal quantities when given in cases to which they are homeopathic. So to bring about a curative action, the medicine that is selected should be homeopathic. So what are the three requirements for such an action? The first one is that it should be potentized. That is, it is dynamic in nature, as our vital principle is dynamic in nature. The susceptibility is increased during sickness, so a potentized drug in a low dose is enough to bring about reaction. And this selection of the drug should be based on the law of similars. So a similar remedy is required to bring about such an action. Hanuman says that a proper dose is always the least possible dose which will affect a cure. So after we take a case, we select a remedy, and after the selection of the remedy, the next thing that is very important is selection of the potency. So now, on what basis we are going to select this potency is on the basis of susceptibility, depending on the seat of disease, the nature and intensity of the disease, stage and duration of the disease, and the previous treatment that he has taken for the same disease. It is very difficult to gauge the susceptibility of an individual, but however, experience has taught many things. The more similar the remedy, the greater the susceptibility of the sick individual to the remedy. So here higher potency is required. So after taking a case, if we can find a very similar remedy to the sick individual, the susceptibility is considered very high and a higher potency is required in such cases. Whereas in the proving of the tinctures and the lower potencies, it has been observed that they produce only common and general symptoms of the drug, and these symptoms cannot be differentiated from other drugs of its class. But whereas in the proving of the medium and the higher potencies, it has been observed that the special and peculiar characters of the drug is revealed by its finer and more characteristic symptoms. So the differentiation between the drugs is possible. So differentiation of the drug is possible when they are proved on healthy human beings in higher potencies rather than when they are proved on healthy human beings in lower potencies or in tinctures. So now let us know the broad classification of the potencies. The potencies are called low if they are below 30, and they are called medium if they are between 30 and 1 m, and they are called high if they are above 1 m. Arnica, sulfur, bryonia and rust ox have great many symptoms in common when they are proved in first or third potency. So in these potencies, we cannot differentiate arnica, sulfur and bryonia, rust ox because of these common symptoms, but when the same drugs are proved in medium or higher potencies, it produces more distinct symptoms and peculiar symptoms and characteristic features by which you can differentiate these 3 or 4 drugs. So now the selection becomes more accurate when they are proved on higher potencies. So Jar observed that by continuous diluting and succussing remedies, they develop individual peculiarities and their sphere of action is enlarged. So the scope of the drugs is increased when they are potentized and proved on healthy human beings. But whereas in case where 2 or 3 remedies appear equally indicated, the susceptibility and the reaction is considered as low, so the remedy selected is given in low potency. And when the most of the symptoms of a case clearly indicated one remedy, we consider the susceptibility to be high and the remedy is given in high potencies. Susceptibility is modified by age. It is high in children, young and vigorous persons. So here medium and high potencies are required. As we know that children grow very fast. Their appetite is good, their height, weight increases very fast. So the susceptibility is considered high and high potencies are required. And the susceptibility diminishes with the age. But however, my dear friends, it should not be considered a rule that children should be given high potency and adults should be given low potency. It is important to gauge the susceptibility of the individual. Depending on his vitality, we need to select the potency. It is not totally dependent on age. So susceptibility is also modified by constitution and temperament. So let us know who are the people who need high potencies. After taking the case, if we find that they are sensitive, nervous, with sanguine or choleric temperament, people who are intelligent and intellectual persons, and people who are quick to react, act, and to zealous and impulsive persons, we need higher potencies. So now who are the people who need lower potencies and also who need repetition of the doses? So these are torpid and phlegmatic individuals, dull of comprehension and slow to act, who are coarse fibered, sluggish individuals of gross habits, and people with great muscular power. So these are the people who need lower potencies. Another factor which modifies susceptibility is habit and environment. So it is increased by intellectual occupation, by excitement of the imaginations and emotions, by sedentary occupations, and by long sleep. And the susceptibility is found decreased in laborers working for long outdoors and who sleep little and whose food is coarse. Susceptibility is decreased in persons exposed to continual influence of drugs such as tobacco, alcohol, traders, druggists, perfumers, and chemical workers. And these are the people who require low potencies. And if the illness is caused by some particular drug influence, high potency of the same or similar drug proves to be the antidote. So now many of the patients who come to us, they come to us after taking allopathic medicines, and also people come to us after taking homeopathic medicines. So persons who have taken many crude allopathic and homeopathic drugs, they need higher potencies for their cure. And the diseases characterized by diminished vital action require the lower potencies, while the diseases characterized by increased vital action need higher potencies. So another factor which modifies susceptibility is the pathological conditions. In terminal conditions and in gross pathological conditions, where the vitality is low and where the person presents more of symptoms of the disease itself, or if the symptoms are because of the underlying pathology, he needs low potency or crude forms of the drugs are used. So now I hope we all know how susceptibility is modified, and let us see this with an example by case. So this case I already presented you in the earlier video, that is arsenicum album, the thirstless. The same case I am repeating you, and here how the susceptibility is modified by the vital reaction, and how after giving the right medicine the susceptibility is increased and we need a hair potency. So a male aged 80 years came with a non-healing wound on the dorsum of the right foot since 4 months, and this person is non-diabetic and is non-hypertensive. So by examination the wound was very offensive, that is 3 plus, and you can see there is excess of exudate and slough again, which is 3 plus, and the wound was covered with necrotic slough. There is debris with maggots, and the very characteristic feature here that we find is the painlessness. The wound is so big, but still it is painless, and the size of the wound is 2 centimeters. So by further observation, he was too weak to move, but he still wants to go out. Prostration was 3 plus, restlessness, and this restlessness was seen more in the night. So when we come to the personal history, the appetite was decreased, his thirst was decreased, and the sleep disturbed, and there's moaning, and he wanted to go out. The bowels were regular, and he had loose stools whenever he used to take allopathic medicines for the wound which was he had taken earlier, but he did not get any relief with antibiotics. The totality of the case suggested arsenicum album, but here in arsenicum album we have read in Allen's keynote and various books that the arsenic album is having thirst for small quantities of water at smaller intervals. But we can find in Kent's Metromedica that arsenicum album is thirstless in chronic conditions, and this patient was given arsenicum album 6C. And now you may ask a question, why he was given arsenicum album 6C? Why the low potency? The low potency is because you can see that the wound is 2 centimeters, and this person being non-diabetic, it was painless. If a diabetic person is having a painless wound, it becomes a common symptom. But here he was non-diabetic and the wound was painless, and there was no redness around the wound, there was no temperature, there was no warmth at the local area of the wound. So here this shows that this person is having low vitality, that the susceptibility is low. So when the susceptibility is low, we need lower potency. So arsenic 6C was given to this patient. So this patient was not having complete inflammatory signs. So the vitality is low, so low potency was given because the susceptibility was decreased in this individual. So when he came for follow-up on August 30th, restlessness was still positive and prostration was still there. The demand offensiveness had decreased, necrotic tissue had decreased, the maggots they had increased, the size was again, it remained 2 centimeters, and the wound bed you can see little granulation tissue being formed, which was not there in the earlier picture. So arsenicum album 6, one dose again repeated in this case. So he came for follow-up again on 6/9/2012. This time he complained itching around the wound, and the demand offensiveness had decreased, the necrotic tissue has decreased, the maggots had decreased, the size remained 2 centimeters, and the wound bed had granulation tissue increased this time. So he came just after 4 days after giving placebo. This time he came with fever with chills, and now he was thirsty. Earlier the same patient was thirstless, and now the temperature was 100 °F. Edema and offensiveness had decreased, necrotic tissue had decreased. Now the maggot and the size is 2 centimeters, and the wound bed, the granulation tissue had increased. You can call it as 3 plus. And as now the patient was having this fever and all, so I thought of just repeating arsenicum album 6 again. So the next day again he came, and this time the fever it continued. Thirst was often for small quantities of water, and the temperature was 101 °F. So I gave him arsenicum album 31 dose. So now you may ask why this potency was not given earlier and why now he was given nursing home 30, because the earlier nursing home 6 had improved the patient and it had improved the susceptibility of the individual. The susceptibility had increased. So now he needs a higher potency. Now for the same individual, arsingamum though indicated does not act in the lower potency. So he was given arsingamum 31 dose. So when we came back on 12/9/2012, the fever subsided, the wound size had completely decreased, and the maggots totally absent, and he was given arsingamum 30, again 1 dose. So he came on 25/9/2012. You can see the wound size is decreased, the edema offensive tissue and the necrotic tissue had decreased, and this time he started developing little pain. So he was given arsingamum 200 as his susceptibility was improving. So he came back on 28/9/2012. The wound almost healed, the appetite had increased, the sleep now it was sound, and the restlessness also had decreased. The edema offensive tissue and necrotic tissue reduced. So he was sent with placebo. So now here you can come to know that the diseases characterized by diminished vital action require the lower potencies, while the diseases characterized by increased vital action respond better to higher potencies. Now in a single case, you can see that when the individual is having low vitality, the drug in a lower potency acted very well, and the same individual after giving the lower potency, when there was improvement and when his susceptibility increased, the same drug within the same lower potency did not act, but when he was given with higher potency, when the vital action of the individual had increased, that is he developed a fever which was not there earlier with the wound, and a higher potency, that is arsenic 30, acted well in this individual, and later when he started also developing pain in the wound, he was given arsenic 200 and it totally healed the wound. So this shows that the potency should match the susceptibility of the individual. So the selection of the drug, selection of the potency with the principles of homeopathy is very important in treating a sick. So the next question that we get rightly in posology is repetition. Whether to give one dose or repeated doses, or if we give one dose, when to repeat it. If we give repeated doses, how often shall we repeat and when to stop it. So with respect to repetition, Hanuman says, give a single dose and wait for its full action. The only rule is repeat the dose only when improvement ceases. So it is very important that we should learn to wait. Kent says that a case may be completely spoiled by improper repetition of dose. So we should not repeat the dose when the person is responding to the medicine, that is when the symptoms are improving, when he is reacting. So improper repetition of the dose spoils the case. So in textbook of homeopathic pharmacy by Mandal and Mandal, we can find the factors responsible for repetition. So that is, one is the condition and progress of patient, nature of the disease, and nature of the remedy. In section 245 of the 5th edition of Organon, where Hanuman says that perceptible and continued progress of improvement in an acute or a chronic disease is a condition which, as long as it lasts, invariably counterindicates the repetition of any medicine, whatever. So whenever there is improvement in acute case or a chronic case, the repetition of the drug is not indicated. So repeat the dose when the improvement ceases and repeat till recovery ensures. And if the patient starts presenting with new set of symptoms, so he demands a different remedy. So according to the present symptomatology of the patient, you need to select another remedy and prescribe, again depending on his susceptibility. So this is mentioned in Organon 5th edition, section 248. So depending on the nature of the disease, that is acute disease, in 5th edition of Organon, in centesimal scale, Hanuman asked to repeat every 4th hourly, 8 hourly, 12 hourly or 24 hours, and in most acute cases 15 minutes or every hour. In the 6th edition, for the same acute disease in 50 millisiemens scale, Hanuman asks us to repeat the doses in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th or 6 hours, and in very urgent cases every hourly. So in chronic diseases in 5th edition in centesimal scale, so Hanuman asks us to repeat on 7, 8, 10, 12 or 14 days, and even higher potency, wait till the action is over. So coming to the chronic disease, in 6th edition, 50 millisievert scale, in case of recent chronic diseases, where we are having primary manifestations of SORA, syphilis and psychosis. So primary manifestation SORA, that is the itch, syphilis with the chancre, and psychosis with the condylomata, that is their first cutaneous manifestation. Hanuman advised to give large and repeated doses. And in old chronic disease, the repetition may be done daily for months with ever increasing success. Higher and higher potencies of the medicine may be continued so long as patient experiences continued improvement in 50 millisievert scale. So now coming to the nature of the remedy with respect to the potency. When the potency is lower, we need frequent repetition, and when the potency is higher, we need not repeat frequently. So again, with respect to the duration of action, short acting remedy. Vegetables and animal sources are usually short acting remedies, so they need frequent repetition. And deep acting remedies, that is from elements, compounds and minerals, no salts, they need less repetition. In section 251 of 5th edition of Organon, where Hanuman mentions regarding medicines having alternating action, if after prescribing on there is no improvement, another small dose of the same medicine is prescribed, and in most cases improvement is seen after second dose. So now let us know what Kent says regarding repetition. The first medicine to be repeated, that is when improvement remains standstill, you need to repeat the first medicine again. And when the original symptom return after a temporary disappearance and having the same general and particulars as formerly, then you can repeat the first medicine again. That is what we find in Kent's 11th observation. So we can find the law of dosage in the Genius of Homeopathy by Stuart Close. The curative dose, like the remedy, must be similar in quantity and quality to the dose of the morphic agent which caused disease. So these are the references: Organon of Medicine 5th and 6th edition by Samuel Hahnemann, the Genius of Homeopathy by Stuart Close, and the Textbook of Homeopathic Pharmacy by Mandal and Mandal. So thank you very much, my dear friends, for being with me throughout the video. Hope you have liked the video. If you like the video, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell so that you will receive further videos. Thank you very much.